creating anything, for me, it gives me the same feeling. It doesn't matter if it's craft, embroidery, and also because I am autistic, one of my hyper-focus, like since I was a child, was creating. It was also very difficult to deal with this part because it was difficult to stop doing what I was doing. So I used to start like in the morning and I could go all day doing the same thing without stopping, and in the end of the evening I was like, I'm a little bit dizzy. What's happened? Yeah, because I forgot to eat. Hi, I'm Jessica Rodrigues and I'm a visual artist and also tattoo artist based in Dublin.
Jessica, can you briefly describe the time of your life when you realised that creativity was more than just a mental health tool, an outlet, and the path perhaps to becoming a full-time creative?
Well, before starting with tattoos, when I was around 15, I decided to study anatomy, study realistic skills. And after that, when I went to the university, I decided to not draw anymore. I stopped drawing for 3 years. And then during a neuroanatomy class, we were required to draw the brain part. And I was like, this is it, I need to do this. So I started drawing again and I started studying again. This happened during my psychology degree. I started also studying creativity, but in a more scientific way. So to understand how creativity works, how we can create like properly. I started drawing because of realism. I wanted something realistic, but now I want to start drawing again, but in a creative way. So then I come back to drawing and I started doing it all again. And I was like, wow, this is good. And people started asking me to draw their tattoos. So they used to bring those drawings to their tattoo artists and they used to refuse my drawings because they were like, oh, but this is impossible to tattoo. So they started asking me to start tattooing and I started.
Amazing.
Just to prove that it was possible.
Yes.
And it was possible.
Can you tell me, how do you feel when you're creating? Is it different when you're drawing for yourself than doing tattoos, or is it a similar feeling with both?
Well, for me, it's something very similar. Creating anything, for me, it gives me the same feeling. It doesn't matter if it's craft, embroidery, and also because I am autistic, one of my hyper-focus, like since I was a child, was creating. It was also very difficult to deal with this part because it was difficult to stop doing what I was doing. So I used to start like in the morning and I could go all day doing the same thing without stopping, and in the end of the evening I was like, I'm a little bit dizzy. What's happened? Yeah, because I forgot to eat. I forgot to do everything, to drink water. So it was kind of unhealthy relationship with creating, and I needed to actively do something to deal with this part. Because when you work with this, it's not good to die in the process.
Neglect your basic needs.
Yeah, I actually needed to. I had help from my therapist how to deal with creating and how to prepare myself to stop and to keep the flow without upsetting myself. And also because, especially when you are an adult, you have things to do. You need to stop to do another thing and another task. You cannot keep doing exactly the same thing the whole day. So I needed to learn how to deal with this, to not become upset, and keeping the creative part like is still good for myself. So this was the tricky part. But the feeling is when I can keep the flow, it's amazing. When I go to the obsession part, it's not that amazing. This is the part that I try to avoid. But in general, I'm doing good with keeping the flow.
How did you introduce, is it a structure that you introduce to stop yourself from continuing to do creative things for too long? How did you overcome that challenge in the first place? You said you were consulting with your therapist, trying to keep it in the healthy boundary.
Yeah, well, she helped me at first to do something very strict. So put the phone, put on the alarm. After some minutes, you need to stop and do something else and drink water, and like keeping things very, very strict at first, to remind myself to eat, remind myself to drink water, to go to the toilet, because I used to literally forget everything. Nowadays, I used to forget only when I have like too many things in the same day. It's only tricky when I have like too many tasks in the same day, like, but everything creative. So I need to remind myself that I need to eat, that I need to stop, do something else.
Can I ask, when did you realize that you're on the autism spectrum?
Well, when I was a child, there are signals. They are there, but as I am the level 1 of support, it was like something is different, but you don't know what. And everyone can notice that something is happening, but no one can explain what. So I realized that, oh, it's this, when I was during my psychology degree in 2011, when I had this class about autism, and I was like, oh, well, it makes sense. And the more I think about it, the more I study about it, the more I can relate, not only now, but during my childhood. It was like, now everything makes sense. At first, I was only studying about it, and after that, I went to, I think it was to a psychiatric and a psychologist, a neuropsychologist. Yeah, 3 professionals, so I could get the proper diagnosis.
And do you find it any easier now that you're more self-aware, you know, that you're diagnosed with autism? Does it make more sense? Is it easier for you to understand yourself and to cope or deal with it better on a daily basis, I wonder?
Yeah, I think when, because having a name, it's like, it's the beginning, but only having a name is not enough. Because people think that because the level 1 of autism, it's just because we need a little bit less support than the other 2 levels, but we still need support. Many people, they are like, oh, and that's it, I'm autistic, and that's all. And it's not all. We need support. So we need to have this therapy, we need this help to understand how we work and understand how the world works, and how can we be in the world without hurting ourselves and without hurting others. So it's like finding a balance, because the world is not made for us, not made for neurodiversity. So it's like we need to adapt in some parts, but for other things we cannot adapt. So we need to talk about it, and we need to say that, well, these are my boundaries. So there are some things that we cannot do, and other things we can learn. And I think that this is the most difficult part, understanding what we can do and what we cannot do, because there are many things that we can improve in ourselves without becoming another person. I think for me, one of the most important parts with my therapy was understanding how I can communicate with other people, and how can I make myself being understood, and how can I achieve this goal. Because a huge problem is when someone is autistic, it's very common to tell things without knowing that they can hurt someone. It's not on purpose. So once we find out, well, maybe they think I'm being rude because I'm talking like this and not that, and I don't want to be rude. So even though I do not understand why they consider me rude, because if someone talked to me in the same way, I won't feel anything. And I need to understand that they are different from me. So in the same way that I need people to talk to me in a way that I consider good, I need to talk to other people in the way that they also consider something good. So if we need to learn how to build more bridges and not walls,
Do you think that since you've been diagnosed and recognized that you are on the autism spectrum, do you think the art and creativity, do you value it more than before? Do you think it's important for you? What role does it have in your day-to-day life?
Well, I think it's extremely important because it's a way that I can silence the world for me. Because, for example, I prefer working in a silent place or with some music, but when I achieve this flow state, it doesn't matter if it's everything loud and people talking, I won't feel this. Well, I will feel after, because I will be very overwhelmed, but it's like at the moment I don't realize this is happening. Only after I'm like, well, why my head is like full of noise and I cannot even listen to my thoughts. Well, it's because of the noise. But while I'm creating, I can put everything and focus like here in front of me, in my hands. It's like having the whole world in my hands. So I can put everything, like physical, emotional, the noise, everything in my hands. So it's like having control. Human beings in general, we like to have control at some point, and we know it's impossible to have control of everything, but the feeling that you can have control at least of this tiny thing in front of you, it's a very good feeling.
What advice would you give to someone who would like to be more creative, but perhaps doesn't know where to start?
Creativity is not that difficult. For example, I don't believe in creative block. I believe that many people are struggling with mental health, they are struggling financially, and this can make it difficult to create. But it's not a creative problem. It's like outside of creativity. So it will be very difficult to create if you are struggling with mental health in a way that you don't even have help. You don't know what to do, or you don't even know what's happening inside of your head. And this, when you can deal with this part, when you can get help, when you can understand this, creating is easier. And it's like I think we as human beings we tend to put too much pressure on creating, and I prefer to focus on creating, and after that you deal with the results. You deal with if you like it or if you don't like it, if you made a mistake and how you can fix this mistake, how you cannot make this mistake anymore. So this part you deal with after creating. You don't need to worry if it's great and a masterpiece before creating. Just start. It's easier than we think. We put too much pressure on something that's very simple. So if you have time, if you have the tools, if you have everything in front of you, you can just start. After that, after you finish, you can deal with the results.